What began as a vlog on a warm sunny afternoon in Rendlesham Forest, Suffolk, we had no way of knowing would ultimately descend into a truly disturbing eyewitness account, and that was multiple eyewitnesses at that, of a hitherto undisclosed alien species. If you want to hear all about that, something that happened this year, 2024, just a few weeks ago, then I seriously recommend you watch this video right the way through to the very end. Some would have you believe ground zero's down there, which would mean ground zero was actually out of the forest completely and in a field, but it's not. This is it. This is Rendlesham Forest, but it's not 1980. It is in fact the summer-ish of 2024. I'm here with some friends who live up on the old military estate. You see much of the forest is now gone because somebody's leveled it. You wonder if they've flattened it so that something can land there, but directly behind me is the original Colonel Holt, John Burroughs, Jim Peniston drop zone. And the so-called alien tree would be back. If I step aside, there's a fallen log there. X marks the spot. This is where it all went down in the dark days of the Christmas holidays 1980. And we're now going to go in there. I know that spot. I've filmed there before. And we're just going to generally update the whole story and see what we can find. There it is. That right there. That's ground zero. Let's go and have a look. This is the exact point of ground zero as it was-ish in 1980. This, at the time of filming, is the 18th of May 2024. We're just catching a lovely, well, kind of moving towards sunset. The bracken is pretty high, and the question is, did anything change after what happened here? And our resident horticulturalist professional is asking how come in such excellent soil there are large patches of ground where everything's turned brown and nothing seems to grow.
Well, what I don't understand about this area is that the ground appears to be exactly the same everywhere. So why is it that the bracken is so sporadic in its growth? It's just not in certain places. Could it be that it has got something under the ground from years ago? We do not know. It looks the same. Detritus falls from the trees, falls from the bracken, so it makes it really rich growing soil. This place, in patches, mainly 3 patches that we can see, is actually quite brown with no growth in the bracken at all. Is that where the footings took place of this aircraft? That's what we're hopefully here to find out today.
Something definitely did happen here on the 27th of December 1980, but the point is, something is still happening here. What exactly is that something? I'll tell you. I think there is a time dilation taking place here. You could call it a pulse. What do I mean? Like any pulse, like a heartbeat, sometimes it's in, sometimes it's out. Sometimes it's phased, sometimes it is not. So you can walk down here one day, there's nothing happening. You can walk down here another time and you just disappear, or you witness something not from another world as such, but from another time zone. Time dilates in Rendlesham Forest. In the summer of 2002, I believe it was, in this exact spot, if we just pan through here, in fact, sitting against that exact tree right there, we had a black triangle encounter, myself and 2 other witnesses, one of whom was Rosie Reynolds, a fairly high-profile British abductee in her time, and her then boyfriend, and we were sitting there and we meditated for a matter of 1 or 2 minutes, and we had a kind of CE5. For those of you who don't know, it's Close Encounters 5, a summoning. And a black triangle flew. This is a roof in the canopy here, where the trees separate because there's a forest path runs alongside us. And this huge thing, blacker than the blackest night. And it was dark, but there was some moon, very, very little cloud, if any. But this thing shook the ground and it bent the branches of the trees down. It certainly wasn't a helicopter. There was no sound of rotors. There were no lights on this thing whatsoever. There was a low hum. The hum was quite unpleasant. It was kind of not the sort of thing you'd listen to through your bass speakers or it'd shatter your eardrums. It was kind of sound, barely audible, more felt. And we had just loaded up our camcorder of the day, bearing 2002 technology, with brand new batteries, and those batteries were completely flat at the end of all this. Some of those present didn't handle it especially well. Won't go into any detail on that, but the bottom line is we were all ill for 3 weeks afterwards. I spoke to these people, we could barely make it back to the cars, which were at that time about 20 minutes walk in that direction, and we were hobbling like a bunch of people from an old people's home. We barely made it back to the cars. I remember sitting there on the sill of my car wondering how I was going to drive home back to Norwich, which is about 50 miles west of here. And I thought, I've never felt like this before. And contacted the others 3 weeks later and they said exactly the same thing. They felt that the life force, the energy had just been drained right out of them by this thing that flew directly overhead. I've only been back here a few times. The strange thing is, I didn't actually know this was ground zero. I was just naturally drawn to this particular place. I don't know why. There's a thicket on the other side of that forest track, and it always feels nice and snug and closed in, and I always came here. I found out, in fact, that it was ground zero exactly 6 years ago today when I came down here with John Burrows and a bunch of the people involved, and they pointed it out. They said, this is ground zero, and I thought, really? This same spot that I've been coming to all these years and where I had my own black triangle encounter? So here it is, ground zero 2024. Some would have you believe ground zero's down there, which would mean ground zero was actually out of the forest completely and in a field, but it's not. This is it. But we're going to have a look down there right now. This is not ground zero, and this is definitely not what landed here. So what did? Well, for a start, if these were aliens, they were pretty damn small aliens, like you say. And for many years we were led to believe that this was ground zero by nefarious forces. It never was. The real ground zero is about a half a mile that way. We've just come down the forest track, straight down there, and we do have a real Romanian wolf roaming around in the background. This is a representation, a facsimile of the thing that was seen on the night or nights of late December 1980. In my humble view, and in the view of various remote viewers, it wasn't actually a spacecraft as such at all. In fact, it was a time-traveling device and unmanned. Also, the remote viewers would say, I have never felt once that this was from another planet. I believe it was from Earth, and I believe it was from Earth's own future, far distant. Make of it what you will, but this thing, whatever you want to call it, was built according to specifications given by eyewitnesses from the American Air Force present on the night, or nights plural, and that is pretty much what it looks like. That is Ziva, the Romanian wolf. The wolf is investigating the UFO. Now, that's not something you see every day, is it?
I'm intrigued to be here. I never knew about Ground Zero because I was always told that this in fact was Ground Zero. So now I've seen it with my own eyes and actually seen the ground layout compared to what we have here. I'm very much convinced that this is not it. There are definitely 3 patches where we've just come from, where we tried to show you, to demonstrate that. And I think this really needs looking at. People are confused, they think this is it. We now know different. Ground Zero, ladies and gentlemen, is not here.
No, and those of us who visit here regularly, we never thought for 1 minute it was. There were those who would have you believe otherwise, and I suspect it was just a convenient spot to clear out to put a big black thing in there.
I think exactly that. I think we need to look at that, but maybe it's not suitable for people to be going there. Maybe they know something at this level that we don't know. Why do they want to keep us away from that? But now it's starting to come open. We know it's there. Others will follow.
For the sake of being fully comprehensive, there are those who believe this is Ground Zero. I shall not name them, they know who they are. But there are those who said that here, this is a demarcation fence where the Forestry Commission land officially ends and the farm begins. That's Capel Green, famous Capel Green over there. And word is from certain quarters that the object, whatever you wish to call it, landed in this field 30 or 40 feet beyond the rough patch. I'm not sure what to believe there. After all, there were multiple encounters with this thing, not just... Oh, the wolf just licked my hand again. Yeah, been waiting all day for that. There were multiple landings and encounters, so whether one of them took place here, behind me in this farmer's field, or not, well, only those who were there on the night will ever actually know for sure. There is another story in play here that was imparted to me by an ex-British military female who made a very different claim, that this, of course, was later proven to be a nuclear base, and the story went that a nuke fell off the wing of an aircraft taking off from USAF Woodbridge here, and that nuke fell in this field, and all of the Rendlesham mystery was concocted as a means of hiding that fact. But then, if you wanted to hide a UFO story, a good way to do it is to make up another story about a nuke falling off a plane. So we'll leave it at that. This used to be called Track 10. I don't know what the hell they call it now, but they've reordered and renamed all of the tracks. Just up ahead of me would be the Eastgate Cottages, and beside those would be the runway and what is now the British Army's helicopter base, but back in the day would have been USAF Woodbridge. Before that, it was a World War II crash site. So if you were up there in your plane coming back from your bombing mission in Germany and you got redirected to that place, you knew you were in trouble, because it had a runway that was 5 times the normal length and had a morgue that was twice the normal size. And there's good reason for that, because a lot of the planes didn't quite make it that far and they crashed right here in the forest on the approachway short of the runway. In fact, behind me there's a sand pit up there which marks the spot of where one of those planes crashed and exploded. In other words, what I'm saying is this place is supposed to be haunted. Haunted by the ghosts of dead airmen who didn't quite make it back from Germany in the Second World War. They got back to England, but only as far as more or less here where I'm standing, and ended up meeting the trees at all the wrong speeds. We have seen an entity that was recorded on film further up there, and we've got these various different little manhole covers that suggest some kind of underground facility here. We don't know what they are. Of course, there's the usual gibber about them being drainage ditches and the such like. I don't know why a forest would have a drainage system. Perhaps there's something I don't know there. But when you bang on the lid, they are actually hollow. We'll go and do that in a minute. But what I'll tell you first is we did have a SASQUATCH sighting here 6 years ago. Some fairly notable ufologists with us. They drifted ahead of us. They didn't see it. We did. There was a lot of crashing and banging, and we saw a little ginger redhead Bigfoot. He wasn't a very big Bigfoot, which I suppose is a contradiction in terms. He was about 5 feet high and looked very angry at our being there. The funny thing was, he was making a noise, lots of noise, all the way there and all the way back, and nobody but me and the person I was with, Joe, actually seemed to notice. We heard it. I heard all this crashing and banging. It sounded like a herd of elephants out there in the woods. Nobody else seemed to pay any attention. Further to that, just up here a little bit further, I heard a thud. This was a different occasion. This was several years earlier. I heard a thud, and a stone landed near my foot, followed by another stone, and in total there were about 5, all dropped in, and it was like this, all dense trees and undergrowth, and a clear track behind me. And this again is another Bigfoot phenomena, those of you who are familiar with it, the throwing of rocks or stones, and there are no stones like that around here. We're in a forest. These were beach stones about this big, and when I went to pick one up, they were actually hot. In fact, they were so hot, all 5 of them, which all landed with precision accuracy in a heap, which would take some doing. I mean, even if you were the world's champion baseball player or something, or cricket player, to land 5 stones in a perfect pile like that, thrown at a distance, would take some skill. Now, we are in the middle of Rendlesham Forest, on what used to be track 10. What is this? As you can hear, it is hollow. There is an underground facility of some sort directly under here. I don't know what. It could be something or nothing. Drainage ditch. I don't know why there would be a drainage ditch in a forest. Actually, Rob is more into that sort of thing. Is that conceivable? Would you have a sewage or drainage system in a forest?
If you follow the line of them, they do head towards the coast. Maybe it's sewage.
Could be a sewage system, but it wouldn't be specific to the forest. It would be for
From the base.
the base buildings.
Yes,
So it could be.
just for the base, yeah.
Or, of course, it could be packed full of bloody aliens. Or interdimensionals, or hyperdimensionals, or something we can't even imagine. But whatever it is that lives down there, it has a yellow metal plate on top that no human being can lift. That is the old Air Force base, with the sun sinking in the west behind it. And as I look back upon the me of just 48 hours ago walking around the perimeter fence at Woodbridge, I see he makes no mention of a very important chance encounter with some local residents. But stay tuned, because we will be hearing more about that very shortly. Wolf is definitely getting a bit friendlier. Not a lot, but a little. This is it. When you hear the phrase left at Eastgate, they're talking about that. Yeah, I know that's my right arm, but that's because you would be facing this way. You'd be looking in at the Eastgate, and if you hold out your left hand, you would go down this forest track here, which leads directly toward the camp centre. Well, you hang a left at the bottom, but it's near enough. Come on, come on. Zena! Oh, Ziva. Well, she almost did it. I'm trying to make friends with a wolf. But this isn't quite what you had in mind, is it? But when we enter the world of aliens and cryptids, sometimes this is exactly what you get. Except in this instance, it was not exactly what was got. What am I talking about? I'm talking about that chance encounter I mentioned a few moments earlier. When I said stay tuned, I wasn't joking, because we ran into some local residents who had a group of children, 4 in all, playing out in the forest. And the kids got startled by the appearance of an alien. Yes, finally we hear the word alien. And aliens usually look something like this. Well, if you're lucky. And this was no exception. This was indeed an encounter with what we call in the trade a tall white. But it wasn't just any old tall white. Even so, I am going to keep that image there just a little bit longer, because believe me, it's a hell of a lot prettier than the one that you're about to see next. And why was that? Because it was the top part of a tall white, but the bottom part had the legs, and I quote, of a werewolf. Now, I have never heard of anything like this, and I've been involved in this all my life, and I've never seen a report of that kind where a more or less conventional alien, if there is such a term, is somehow blended with a cryptid, top to bottom or bottom to top or whatever. You hear theories about them being engineered and doctored and changed and left here, but you do not ever hear of alien cryptid hybrids. At least I've never heard of one. And this particular one galloped off on its werewolf little leggies, or big leggies as the case may be, at extreme speed when it saw these 4 children. They were quizzed quite thoroughly, as we were told, and the kids stuck to their story. They saw a tall white alien with the legs of a werewolf, and when it saw them, it galloped off into the woods. Sasquatch! Is he in Rendlesham Forest? Well, you tell me, because we did find this. Did we find a couple of young lads building this, or was it built by a Bigfoot? But someone, or something, built this in the forest. A black diamond is how one airman described the Rendlesham UFO. I turned that around to read Diamond in the Sky and wrote a song about it. Not bad, actually. And if you sift around on this site for long enough, you'll probably find it. Probably.